Hello, welcome back again. In case you're just joining us, it's still Moneyline with Nancy, and this time is for our conversation. I did say at the beginning of the program I'll be looking at global risk. 2020 as released by Allianz Risk Barometer. Wale Adeneye, the group head, Special Risk Alliance, is joining me from Lagos via Skype. Hello, Wale. Can I see you? Can you hear me?
Good morning. I can hear you clearly.
Yes. Wale, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you too?
I'm well. Can be better. Now, let's take a look at the report that was released by your company, Allianz Risk Barometer 2020, identifying the major risks for 2020. I've gone through the report, but let me start by asking you, in fact, when I was going through it, when I saw the, your theme, Barometer 2020, what came to my mind, perhaps to ask you, is what is Barometer 2020? Should I take it literally? How do you literally explain, or perhaps take a look at barometer? Because my own science taught me that a barometer is a device that measures atmospheric pressure. So did you guys really measure the pressure for global businesses? What's that Barometer 2020 all about?
Good morning. Thank you for that.
Yes, go ahead.
The Barometer 2020 we borrowed the word barometer from science, but we did not measure pressure, but we measure direction in this perspective. So it's basically looking at the direction of the risk that global businesses is going to face in 2020. So Allianz Risk Barometer 2020, it's a publication of Allianz Group Corporate and Specialty. The report actually focused on emerging risk that global businesses is going to face in 2020. And in coming up with the report, a survey was conducted in over 100 countries with experts over 2,700, which cut across CEOs of companies, insurance experts, risk consultants, and brokers. So Allianz Risk Barometer 2020 is looking at the top 10 global business risks that's likely going to emerge in 2020, and it's going to affect the operation of not only the global businesses, it also affects the economy.
Okay. Okay, Wale, let me just halt you here, because since you've talked about the methodology, how you guys went about it, interviewing over 2,000 people. My next question is, you actually did say the corporate or the top 10 business risks. Now let's move into that. What are the major corporate perils this year?
Okay, for this year, number one on the list is cyber incidents. So out of the 2,718 respondents for this survey, 39% of responses rank cyber incidents as number one risk that global businesses is going to face in 2020. Without much ado or discussion on this, it stares us in the face the risk that cyber incidents and cyber risk is going to pose to companies in all over the world. We do know about cyber crime. We do know about cyber attack. We do know because of the dependency of modern companies and corporate organizations on IT and technology infrastructure in business operations. Therefore, cyber attacks, cyber incident is going to curtail and have either positive or negative impact on their businesses. We're all aware of WikiLeaks in US, the recent ransomware attack in South Africa in December 2019. And let me say this, even in Nigeria, in every 1 hour, research has revealed to us that there is always a cyber attempt or a cyber attack on operation of companies, even in Nigeria, in every 1 hour. So therefore, cyber attack, whenever it happens, it's going to disrupt the operations of companies because we now leverage so well on technology. It's going to affect brand, because your brand reputation is at stake when there is a cyber attack. When there's a cyber attack, because of the Data Protection Act as well, if there's a breach of data, definitely the company is going to face litigations from individuals that are affected, which could lead to fines and penalty. So globally, it is the #1 risk. But when we come down to Nigeria, it still ranks 8 out of the 10th risk being faced in Nigeria. But the risk as well is very real in Nigeria, because payment platform in Nigeria, financial institutions in Nigeria, all leverages on IT, all leverages on technology. So we are not immune to what happened in the global world.
Yes, Wale, point taken. But the issue now is that for people watching, one would begin to wonder, if cyber incidents is the top threat, what should businesses do to manage cyber risk and perhaps improve cyber resilience? What should businesses do at this point to protect themselves from cyber attack and improve cyber resilience? Wale, are you with me?
Yeah. I'm with you.
Okay.
Truthfully, why companies are putting all efforts, leveraging on IT to put all necessary measures in place to reduce or to stop cyber attack. And as an insurer, what we have done in Allianz is to develop a product in the event of the possibility of the occurrence of a cyber incident. So at Allianz, we've developed a product called Cyber Liability Insurance Product to take care of the losses and damage that could result if this incident will happen.
Okay. Wale, I just have to halt you there because we have a lot. After your interview, I need to take another interview. Let's go over to, you mentioned top threats, top 10 threats. Let's go over to other threats. When I was going through your report, I saw other threats as business disruption. I saw other threats, even around climate change and all of that. So I want you to really speak to those threats very quickly.
Okay. Let me quickly come down to Nigeria. So for Nigeria, we have #1 threat for Nigeria. We have macroeconomic development, which rank 36% for Nigeria. And this for macroeconomic development, we are looking at risk coming from the monetary changes in monetary policy, austerity program of the government, commodity price increase, deflation and inflation. For the commodity price increase, we all witnessed what happened and what is currently happening after the closure of importation by land, which is the restriction of land border importation, and its implication on rice. The increase in price and this consequent effect on the disposable income of the citizenry. It's one. Then secondly, the second threat, risk for Nigeria has to do with theft, fraud, and corruption, which ranked 36% from the responses we got. And looking at corruption, the Allianz Risk Barometer 2020 actually situates that by 2030, 37% of our GDP will be lost to corruption, which means $2,000 per person will be lost to corruption in 2030. Not even far away from it, the Corruption Perception Index report released by the Transparency International actually ranked Nigeria 146th from 144 out of 180 countries that were surveyed in the world. So this actually showed us glaringly in the face that corruption is a major threat and is a major risk in Nigeria. And when we talk of corruption and fraud, it's not only limited to the public sector, we also have corruption in the private sectors. But it is imperative that if corruption is not curbed, if corruption is not stopped in Nigeria, it's going to have a far-reaching implication on the economy.
Okay, let's talk about another threat, which was interesting to me, climate change. I don't know if it's going to affect Nigeria, if it's part of the top threats for Nigeria, but taking a look at your report from Allianz as your report, climate change rose to the highest ever position in your risk barometer. You said, of course, that there are extreme calamities threatening the world and businesses right now. Of course, in Nigeria, we're seeing massive flooding. We're also seeing fiercer storms around the world. The droughts are even getting drier and rising seas. We saw, I think, an earthquake in somewhere in Turkey. So how important is global warming right now? Global warming issues to businesses. Is climate change a threat in the case of Nigeria?
So I will situate the response to your question from this perspective. Truthfully, climate change is a threat to businesses in Nigeria. Kindly recall that we are in a global economy in which what happens in other parts of the world also affects Nigeria. In terms of product importation, in terms of consumption, Nigeria relies so much on importation. So for argument's sake, for companies that their input for raw materials, let's say, for example, comes from China, and there is an earthquake in any part of China, or as we have fire every year in Australia, it will definitely affect the supply of raw material to a company that is in Nigeria, which definitely will affect production, which definitely will affect output, affect the economic earning of the company, which of course definitely will affect the ability of the company to pay the employees. So climate change affects the whole world, and Nigeria is not immune to the impact of climate change.
So businesses should prepare. How should businesses prepare for that, really? You know, how?
Okay, to avoid, example, a supply chain disruption. While a business has your supply of input from a country outside Nigeria, if those products could be grown in Nigeria, if those products could be developed in Nigeria, companies should make efforts to localize the supply of their raw materials, which in a way, if there's disruption anywhere in the world, it won't affect or have great impact on their production.
The other aspect that I was also interested in is new technologies, and perhaps you're speaking to that a bit in the sense that we should perhaps Nigerianize or domesticate some things that we really need to do to avoid some of the supply disruptions. You talked about new technologies, artificial intelligence and all of that. Situate it to the Nigerian perspective.
Okay. These days we talk about big data. We talk about data analytics. We talk about artificial intelligence. But the fact remains that as much as we are also dependent on technology as an enabler, definitely technological innovation is going to affect our businesses. And it's going to become the first mover advantage. Just Tuesday this week, Google opened Google Developer Space in Nigeria, presently here in Lagos. And the purpose of that Google Developer Space is to bring together entrepreneurs, to bring about software developers, startup and investors, so that they could connect and collaborate in a single location on how to develop and as well expand the scope of technology in Nigeria. No doubt, either you are into hospitality business or you are into manufacturing, you are in the financial institutions, technology has come to stay. It has become an enabler, and it's always a first mover advantage. So companies, as much as we are becoming aware of the beauty of technology, of course, we should also be aware of the disruption that will come with technology.
Now,
interestingly,
go ahead.
Interestingly, let me quickly bring this up. The Central Bank of Nigeria in January 2019 actually released a guideline titled Risk-Based Security Framework and Guideline for Deposit Money Banks and Payment Service Providers. What does this guideline actually talk to? Have you realized that banks or financial institutions in Nigeria leverages and rely mostly on technology for all their operations, and realizing that could there be a cyber disruption, could there be a cyber attack, could there be a data breach, it's going to affect their operation. CBN realizes this and they issue a guideline and a framework around the use of technology, to the extent that banks are now mandated to take a cyber liability insurance policy in the event of data breaches.
Okay, I was coming to, if there are some certain countries that are really exposed to some of this development and some of this risk, are there some countries that pose this risk? I hope you understand my question. Countries that are exposed to this risk, and are there some countries that pose this risk? Perhaps African countries too included.
For countries that are exposed to this risk, all countries are exposed to the risk of cyber. Because if respondents across 100 countries could choose cyber as #1 risk from the world, it shows that we can take that sample to mean that all countries in the world are exposed to cyber incidents. Now, if you want to narrow it to countries that pose threats of cyber, as long as every company leverages on technology and they have developers both for software and their hardware, definitely in every country as well, we have individuals, we have hackers that are threats to everyone that leverages on technology.
Okay, but it's not just even technology. It's not cyber attack that you're talking about. Some countries like climate change, I could guess, like it's talked about wildfires, Australia suffering from that. I think Brazil too, with the Amazon forest fire.
Yes, forest, yes.
Yes, that was on last year. You're also seeing that countries or companies can take, perhaps they can also take some precautions, because you see that political differences between nations now are also played in the cyberspace. What is happening perhaps with the US and China? But let me ask you one final question, because we have to go now. Why is Allianz thinking or saying that the directionality of global markets will be hard to predict? When I saw that, I wanted some perspectives to that.
So what we are saying here is that that the directionality of the global market is going to be hard to determine. Is looking at the risk, the top 10 risks that we've identified in the world. The truth is that the risk cut across all sectors. So we look at the political sector, the issue of Brexit in the US, the issue of US and China trade war. Then we also look at the cyber incidents, which look at the technological aspect of it. We look at political violence, as we can see, as is happening between US now and Iran. And even political violence is not only about US and Iran. We all know what is happening among the world leaders. Even bringing down to Nigeria, we can see the impact of political violence and civil unrest. So bringing together all these factors, macroeconomic development, changes in market development, all these make it very difficult to be able to situate and predict.
Okay, I think we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, Wale, for joining me today. Speaking on the Barometer 2020, so at least you actually said in your intro, it's not really about pressure, but they are like pressures on global business, isn't it? So that's why it's called the Barometer, a device that is used to measure atmospheric pressure. That's what I was taught in science. But thank you very much, Wale, for joining me. I'll be speaking with Wale, the group head at Special Risk Alliance. Now let's quickly take a break to bring in Segun Abolaji, who is the PRO Reden of the FCT. He's also a real estate expert. Let's take a break. Shouldn't we also be knocking the heads of the fiscal authority? Yeah, but because I'm saying, how does the monetary authority succeed if the fiscal side is not supported? That means that whatever the central bank would have done over the years would have been zero.
Nancy, we will be professional. Nancy, we will be our